So, I'm here in Hong Kong, and the first thing I'm off to do is go meet Charles Ng at Invest HK to talk about all things fintech and Hong Kong. Charles Ng, lovely to meet you here at Invest Hong Kong, Invest HK. Fintech is incredibly important to Hong Kong. Why is that relationship so synonymous? Why do Hong Kong and fintech go so well together?
Well, first of all, welcome to Hong Kong.
Thank you very much.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the office. Fintech is a natural vertical for Hong Kong because of the fact that as a global financial center, over 18% of the GDP is financial services, and Hong Kong is the third largest global financial center in the world, and first in Asia, just behind New York and London, because we have 230,000 plus professionals working in financial services.
Okay.
And very importantly also because we have the ingredients to really becoming one of the fintech hubs in the world, we believe, because companies, when they come here, first of all, the professionals in financial services, it's a natural fit for them to using technology to looking at new models, and this is where we're seeing a lot of that. But of course, on the other hand, on the flip side, you see at what we call tech fit.
Yes.
And we have a lot of technology companies, really some of the world's most important technology companies just next door in Shenzhen. And a lot of these, with the issuance of the banking license, the virtual banking license that we've seen, so the Hong Kong Monetary Authority has launched 8 virtual banking licenses in the past month.
Right.
And this is only the beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
And I think that with what they're doing with that banking license, the virtual banking license, they're going to come up with a lot of products and services because also to fill in the gaps of what the traditional banks are not necessarily offering. And so that the virtual banking license opens up a huge door, not only in terms of scalability, because through virtual banking you can actually reach out to a lot of people, but also potentially come up with products and services which are for the what we call unbankable. So it's a very sort of financial services inclusiveness. And I think that we'll see as in the months and years to come, very interesting in how this whole virtual banking licenses that have been granted to these 8 institutions are going to come up with really exciting products and services. And also that also really sort of push the traditional banks and insurance companies and get them to not sort of sleep on their laurels, but kind of come up with
change the game.
Innovation, yes, and also using technology. And I think that nowadays, unlike a few years ago when we started the journey, where companies, the banks were kind of looking at it in a bit of a reluctant way, but now it's very interesting because when we talk to fintech companies, actually over 70% of them want to sell the products and services to the financial institutions, banks, and insurance companies and large companies.
Yeah.
So it's not, and I think the banks see that as well and welcome that. So that's kind of the interesting shift, very interesting. And of course, Hong Kong is very much a B2B market for financial services and fintech, and because of the very diversified economy in Hong Kong, for e-commerce or commerce and online, offline, to logistics, supply chain, and health. And so a lot of these fintech companies coming up with products that cut across different sectors. So from cross-border payment to blockchain in trade financing or cybersecurity. And this is not just for Hong Kong. And the beauty of it is that fintech is being adopted by different of course, the financial services and the traditional financial services companies, and also the tech companies and the telcos, but also being adopted by a lot of these companies in the other verticals, like in supply chain logistics, when we talk about trade financing for blockchain, or health tech, which in terms of payments and so on. And so the also important thing is that the access to finance, the access to funding. I think Hong Kong provides that.
Speak about the cross-border payments, and how are you seeing companies, fintech companies or tech fin companies using Hong Kong as a platform to then go into the mainland? Is that something that's quite popular?
Sure. I mean, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, our kind of de facto bank of Hong Kong, if you will. They are the main regulators for the payments and cross-border payment and so on. They work extremely closely with their counterpart in Shenzhen, for example. And it's a perfect kind of combination because, as you know, we had a speed train now that can go from Hong Kong to Shenzhen. It would take only 14 minutes.
Wow.
Instead of an hour trip to go there. So 14 minutes to Shenzhen, 45 minutes to Guangzhou. And then it's a natural fit to sort of come up with solutions to say, okay, well, we have a lot of people crossing the border. How do we make it easier for payments? And it's only the beginning of the journey because I think both sides, as a kind of sister city with Shenzhen, if you will, it's a natural fit for us to be looking at that. And now we've got the physical infrastructure. How do we get the fintech infrastructure across so that it would make things easier, businesses to connect with each other easier and faster. And it's all about the whole faster payment. And of course the QR code, we have a lot of technology in place that can facilitate that.
Yeah. You mentioned that the Hong Kong Monetary Authority gave out 8 virtual banking licenses last year. How long do you think it takes for the general public to adopt to a new financial service like online banking?
People here are quite tech savvy. They adopt to things. Of course, you have different segments of the society. You have the millennials and the other people who are into tech and they would want to adopt it faster. But I think that having this choice for the people, we will expect, the traditional banks are here to stay, and they will come up with a lot of new products for their clients. But the virtual banking will open up a completely new realm. It makes sense for them to come up with complementary services that the traditional banks, our bricks and mortar, are not offering, make things faster, easier, and more cost effective, and so that it would facilitate the customers. We've seen, for example, in the day-to-day life where the supermarkets have these counters where you can just go and self-checkout and things like that, but then you see more people still traditionally lining up to pay for their groceries. So it's a choice. It's really, and I think as a global financial center and as a global fintech hub, it is extremely important to having this kind of offerings. We do a survey every year. We have now, I think, as of last year, over 550 plus fintech companies. Today the numbers should be over 600, 700. And it's very interesting to see when we talk to them how they are focusing their business. So these businesses tell us that we have 50% of them are local Hong Kong, and 50% of them are from overseas and from the mainland. And 71% of them tell us that actually they're not looking just at China. They are looking more. They're focusing on the market outside of Asia. But it's a very kind of evolving kind of ecosystem every day. We see so many exciting things coming in here. In the areas of RegTech, regulatory technology, in the areas of payments, of course, in the areas of blockchain for trade financing, in the areas of wealth tech, and also we see things like cybersecurity and also blockchain for trade financing.
Charles, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and have a good day. Best Hong Kong.
Thank you.